Because there's something internally that's changed your location. Because now you're facing something that you've never had to face before. And now you're not comfortable. Midbar. And now you're in an area that you look the same externally. But internally you are at war. But now God says, Dabar, I can give you an instruction now that you wasn't willing to hear 6 months ago. So all those 2 captivities that Israel had experienced, God rose on, he brought them out. And he told them that he was sending somebody to prepare a way for them. And with all of that, he told them that I am going to make what? Your valleys high. Which means that the low points are now going to be lifted up. And then he was going to make the high points made low. So that means God is getting ready to turn your world inside out. But how is he going to do that? He's going to do that by using you as an introduction for somebody else. Your wilderness is where the pain is. It is in your pain that birth life. Amen. Some of y'all don't want to hear that. Come on, Rick. Some of us don't want to go through a valley experience. But how many of you all now that you're older in God? When you look back at your valley experience, you thank God for your valley experience. Every invention that came, not just by black folk, but every invention that came because somebody was facing a wilderness experience. When you are with doubt, you try to find a way to go with. And that's why when you look at black folk back in the days of old, how they were able to make a way out of no way. They were driven to make whatever they had work. Because it's in that pain that they were experiencing, they were driven, they were motivated. get excited when I find somebody that was raised in the projects. And they're doing so well today. And then I find those who had a little something. And they struggling today. If you take things for granted, you could make a wilderness experience a lifetime. But when you actually go to the wilderness and you didn't ask to go there, and you learn while you're there, that experience can propel you to have something in life. But can I help you out right quick? Where are now the Benjamin Banners, who happen to be a black man born free in the time of slavery at its highest point? He happened to be a self-educated man. He happened to be somebody who was good at mathematics. He was good at chemistry. He was good at looking at agriculture. He was also so good that he was the one that actually had to finish designing our capital, Washington, D.C. Because a young man named LaFont got mad. He started feeling himself. He got into his feelings, what the young folks say now. And when he got into his feelings, he left, took all his plans and everything. But George Washington noticed Benjamin Banner. And he says, Benjamin, I know it's not popular to allow people who look like you to have a responsibility that I'm assigning you to. I need you to finish designing Washington, D.C. And he took it. He didn't run from it. He took the opportunity. And when he took the opportunity, it propelled him in front of folk. The almanac that we see at the grocery stores, that a lot of older folk and farmers use to look at the weather, how to plant a crop, how and when to get a tooth pulled. Young folk, y'all don't know nothing about that. But because you don't know, don't mean it's not there. And he did so well with it, it's still around today. He was the first man to make a solid wood clock. And it kept perfect time for 40 years. He was the first man to teach the troops how to preserve their crops during the what? Civil War. Then he wrote a letter back to George Washington, a man that signed a decree that all men are created equal. And when he wrote that to George Washington, he put down at the bottom of the letter, he says that I find it hypocritical for a man to sign a declaration that all men are created free, but yet you own slaves. Pastor, what are you saying? When he looked back at his wilderness experience, he gathered something that no man could give him. He gathered something that his mother couldn't give him. He even gathered something that education couldn't give him. Or what was it, Pastor? He gathered